Welcome to the Sunday morning simulcast for RomWills.com. And I'm your host, Rom Wills. Once again, this is going across all of my platforms. The power within. You know what? On a video that I did on my YouTube platform recently, I had a comment, where I had stated that, you have some bums out here who will get women, right? And I had a gentleman, he wanted some clarification. He wanted to know whether I was saying it was bums who get women. You have to be a bum. I was like, no, I just said there are bums who get women. We see that. But there are also millionaires who get women. And then there are also college professors who get women. See, it's not so much about the outer. It's not about the financial status. It's not about the profession. It's what they all have within. And there's a certain self-belief, at least when dealing with women, that they all have a similar power within. Now, this simulcast isn't about getting women, but that was just an example. If you look at successful people, regardless of their race, their ethnic group, their financial status when they started out, their social class, they all had something within them that got to them to where they were. Because a lot of times we look at the outer shell of a person or the outer circumstances and we think, oh, that's what they need. And in fact, a lot of people who are from the outside looking in, they'll say, well, that person had that advantage growing up, or they grew up in that neighborhood, or they grew up that particular race, or, 1,000 things. They had that advantage. But it's like, no. You have people who get into life, or they come into life with a silver spoon in their mouths. They have stuff handed to them, yet they're homeless somewhere, or they haven't reached their full potential. And yet you have someone born under the worst of circumstances. You have someone who might be born in a backwoods somewhere. Their bathroom is an outhouse, and yet we still have those. And yet they'll rise to the highest level of their profession. They'll become millionaires, some even billionaires, who will rise up. What they all have in common, the people who make it, they are able to reach down within themselves and bring forth their talents. Their power is really within. And why do I say this? Well, it is said that the average millionaire has been bankrupt at least 3 times. You have plenty of stories of people who reach the pinnacle of success, and yet they fall on hard times. I can even say that for myself. There was a period, I was living off my books, everything, but then there was some personal stuff that happened. And then, went to a point, barely making it. But now I'm coming back up. But the key was, it was not the circumstances. It was not being lucky or anything like that. It was with what was within me. And see, one of the things when I look at people, I look at not their outer shell. I don't look at what car they're driving. That's irrelevant. I don't look at where they say they went to school. That's irrelevant. I don't look at, how they look, their race or anything. That's irrelevant. I look for signs of what's inside of them. Because that's going to tell me everything about them. It's going to tell me where they're really going to go. And the reason why, well, let me use a scenario that's common. And this is with someone who has had the things handed to them, who has gone to the good schools, have been raised well, all of that stuff. And they would seem to go far. But as soon as they hit a setback, that's when you find out what's really within them. Because they'll fall and then they'll stay there. That happens so much. But then you get the other person. You get someone else. They didn't have the advantages, but they had that drive. They had that inner thing. And see, the issue there is that with that inner thing, that inner power, you're going to survive whatever, because there's certain circumstances. Look, to be honest, you could be in a profession, you could be in a job, you could be any place, and some outside circumstances that you have no control over can take it away from you. You could be working on a high paid job, and because, people who run the job, who manage the job, couldn't do things right, they end up losing the company or something. Or, the company gets taken over, you get fired, or you get laid off, or you get another situation where the business might move. You have businesses that might move out of the country. Anything could happen. You could lose that job. Or a business. You could be in a business, but because of circumstances greater than you, your business declines. Like one example with that is you could be in a business where a lot of your business is dependent on another business. Like, say you have a successful little takeout place, but it's next to a factory, right? And this has happened with a lot of people over the last 20 or so years with factories moving out of the country. Say you have a little place, it's very successful, it's fun, but that factory closes. All of a sudden, that affects your business. But with the power within, you just go start another one. When you tap into that power within, you can just jump into something else. If you lose a job, you can jump into something else. And it's more than just about finances. It's more than just how much money you have in the bank. It's just going through life, period. Stuff happens. You could have a situation where a relative dies or your parent dies or something, and there's a mess left behind. That happens with a lot of people. That can affect you. You can have some accident where you can't work. That affects a lot of people. A lot of people get messed up by some medical thing. But if you have something within you, that power within, you can survive anything. You can go through anything. I remember years ago when I was still living in D.C., right? There was this area I would travel to. Well, it was like between my home and my grandmother's house, right? And it was a certain path I would always take to get there, right? Certain road, right? And I would always drive past this little park, right? And there was this older homeless man there, right? Saw him all the time. And I go through life with very few regrets. The one regret I did have, I never just stopped. I always wanted to just stop and just talk with him. And apparently a lot of other people had that aspiration as well, because people would just stop and talk with him. Now, this was an older black man, and you had a lot of young white kids who would just stop and talk with him, because he had an interesting thing. Even though he was homeless, he had like a little tent. He also had like a little card table and a chair. And sometimes he would just put, in this little park, he would just put this card table up. He'd put the chair down, and he would just sit there. And then sometimes you'll see him cleaning the table with some Windex. And I don't know, maybe he was one of God's angels or something, but people would just stop and talk with him, right? I think he must have had 2 chairs or something. Yeah, I think he had 2 chairs. And people would just stop. Young people. Sometimes people with a suit on and everything. But just watching him, he just had a power within him. I mean, you saw what he had. He had a tent, he had a couple chairs, table. But he would clean that table, and he carried himself with a dignity. He had a power. I'm not sure what his story was. But that's the type of power you have. You have to have the power that if you're a diamond, you can be thrown in a box of glass, but you want to cut the diamond. That glass won't cut that diamond, but the diamond will cut that glass. And that's the one thing that people have to cultivate. A lot of people will chase money. They'll chase some status, and they'll think, once I get that, everything will be okay. But then if they manage to get those things, their life is still messed up and things aren't going for them. Like, you have a lot of people who will win the lottery, and they get some material things, but then they end up being broke within a year. Because it didn't really come from within. But if you have that inner power, if you have that thing within you, you can survive anything. You can make it. No matter what the ups and downs of life, and you're going to have them. You can do it. That's the power. See, real power comes from within. You know? Real power, and that's what you want to cultivate. It's a beautiful thing. So heed my words, think about my words. I want everybody to keep rising and transforming. Peace.